Good evening, Sky people. Welcome to this week's show, the Astro Imaging channel. Let's see, I'll dive into some announcements here first before we have our speaker begin. So our next TAIC workshop is underway now. Eric Coles, we have some of his M101 data with and without the supernova that occurred earlier this year, or last year, I guess now. If you go to the website and look under the TAIC workshop tab, you can download the stacked images and process them however you would like, whatever you think would make a nice image. And you can submit those to us. The email address is on the website before March 17th. And we'll be looking for some speakers to come on and talk about some things that they did with that data, just like a short presentation on something interesting you did with it, something unusual, or something that you want to share about how you processed it. So if you want to volunteer for that, please make sure you say so in the email. And that show is going to be on March 31st. And again, that deadline to submit is March 17th. So go download those files and get to work. Next week, we have Matt Dietrich on probably, we think, Milky Way photography. Sorry, we don't have that on the calendar yet. I don't have I'm getting a talk title from him shortly. It's Milky Way season's coming up not very soon, but in a couple of months, we'll get the Milky Way back into our night sky, and you can go take those gorgeous nightscape shots. So we'll see more about that. But tonight we have Dr. Kai Young, who studied physics and computer science. And he retired from a distinguished career in high-tech areas all over the San Francisco Bay Area just before COVID hit. Very wise. And he's been doing astrophotography since before he retired, but he was one of the first people to own the new ZWO Seestar, their automated telescope. And he's been doing all kinds of interesting things with it that you wouldn't think one of those telescopes could do, like spectroscopy or operating in equatorial mode. So he's going to tell us all about that and adventures that he's had with it. And I think with that, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I want to show you about the Seestar. Now this, a lot of people probably know that it's one of those new smart telescopes that's hitting the market, and it's pretty cheap, and there are a lot of questions, and I actually attracted a lot of new people into the field of astrophotography. So I want to show you roughly what this is, and I'm going to kind of give you my experience using it as a kind of intermediate astrophotographer, and why am I using it. And so here it is. So it's roughly 3 kilograms, and everything is in here. There's no wire and nothing. So I'm going to start my presentation now. Turn it on. There we go. There's my Seestar. That's how it starts. All right, so this is my, can you see my slides?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
All right, so first let me start by saying that when I started thinking about doing a talk on Seestar, I realized this topic can cover a lot of stuff, and there are a lot of people from different backgrounds. So there's going to be so much information, I cannot possibly get everything in squeezed into one talk. So I actually have a Facebook group that kind of go through a lot of these things that I'm going to discuss today. So I'm going to use this talk as mainly as an overview, but if you want to go in depth, I welcome you to join the group, and you can see all kinds of interesting things that we do. And a lot of these things you see, I'll kind of cover on a high level, but if you have questions, please stop me and I'll kind of drill down a little more, all right? So the agenda is, what is Seestar? What's it typically used for? What's good, bad, and ugly? You hear a lot of good stuff to it, and there's also some complaints. So I've kind of covered that broad spectrum. With the bad and ugly, how do we overcome some of these shortcomings? So something we did is kind of play with it in the equatorial mode. As you know, Seestar is an actually azimuth mount. So we kind of did some kind of funny things to it. So you hear a lot about that later on. And we also did some custom configurations to do things we want to do. I'll tell you why we need to do that. And I want to focus this talk into Seestar, for me, is a very good platform for doing science and education. It's great for taking pictures, but after a while, I want to do something that's interesting and also that's kind of unique. That can actually give some values back to the world. So I'm going to focus on the spectroscopy stuff, but you can do other things as well. I'll kind of go through that a little bit in this talk as well. And I'll also touch on this Facebook group that we started literally just 2 weeks ago. And we got around 600-700 members now. And that group is mainly to devote testing new ideas and how to improve smart telescope like this to extend what it's meant to do. And to give you some of the surprises, that we actually jailbroke the Seestar. So now we actually have access to hardware and firmware. So I'm going to cover that a little bit, but a lot more details in the group. All right? Is there any questions?
You can go right ahead.
Okay. Okay, so what is Seestar? Seestar is literally, it's a 50 millimeter Apple triplet. Optic is f5, so roughly it's a 250 millimeter telescope. The optic is good to excellent. It's one of the best optics I can see. For this kind of range, you see a lot of these guide cameras and things, guide lenses. I would equivalent this to like an Evo guide, which is like the gold standard for guide scopes. The sensor itself, it's a IMX 462 color sensor. It's a 1080p sensor. You can see the aspect ratio is very wide, so it's not square. It's pretty small pixels. One good thing about this sensor is that it had very low read noise. It's half to 2.6 electron volt and a full well of around 12 keV. So it's ideal for very short integration because the read noise is so low. I think ZWO picked this sensor because this sensor has been obsolete to be replaced to a newer generation. So I think Sony kind of flooded the market, so they picked up a lot of these and they put in this unit. And as you know, like I say, it's osmos mounted motor configuration. So it's definitely not equatorial scope and mount. It actually has a few internal filters. It has internally a dark filter to do darks. It has a UV IR cut filter that actually glue on the sensor, so you cannot replace it. So it's always there. And actually also shipped with a drawer that can actually put it on top, which is what they call a narrowband filter. But it's a dual narrowband filter, but it's really like a light filter, light pollution filter. The bandwidth is really high. It's like 40 to 50 nanometer. But they call it actually a light pollution filter. But all that is in place is all electronic controlled. It has an autofocuser, so you can remotely control the autofocus. And it's actually quite surprising that even for like a plastic unit like this, when I do autofocus, it's actually spot on. I even use a bottom of mask, and it's actually perfect. In fact, I don't even use that mask anymore. I just use autofocus. It's amazing how in terms of hardware, the implementation is very well done. It ships with an external solar film they can put on top of, in front of the lens. So it actually become also a solar imager. Okay, I'll show you some samples later. It has a dual heater built in, and you can control it with a electronic switch. It also has a dumbed down, what I call ASI air. I call it dumbed down. ASI air is actually internal. It is an ASI air. They just kind of dumb it down. It actually Raspberry Pi inside, and all the actual electronics are very similar. You can control everything using a mobile phone, and I'll kind of walk you through a little bit what it can do. It also comes with a tripod. It's a pretty small one, but also has internal and replaceable lithium battery. Everything's all in one place. And what you see on the right is actually my scope. And because it's so light, I actually don't mind actually just simply lift it to my roof and just put little things on top. And now I can put it there, and actually I can image over my roof and over all the trees. And it's because it's only 3 kilograms, it's very easy to put it there. For safety reason, I put like a wire strap on the side, so just in case of wind or animal, it won't fall to the ground. I would never do that to my regular scope. Okay. So let me compare this to a typical AP rig. So like I said, the optics, to me, I try 3 or 4 different lenses, and as you know, a lot of them it's actually pretty bad. The only one that really stand up for me before was this Evil Guide, and I can tell you, the optics in this one is comparable to Evil Guide. The sensor, again, I gave you the price. It has autofocus wheel, essentially equivalent to a filter wheel, as narrow band filter. The mount, it's a plastic version of the Skywatcher AZ-GTI. The controller, it's a dumbed down version, ASI Air again, the tripod carrying case. If you add up all this, think about it, it's $2,300. $2,300. And the unit here is 500. And compared to weight, it's 3 kilograms to you know what. That's why it's just a nice package. It's very portable. And in terms of hardware, it's actually quite capable. Let me go back, sorry. Okay, and key thing in here too, there's no wires. Before you have all these rigs, you got to set up and things, but here you simply just pop it on the ground and away it goes. So to me, it's like an iPhone. It's taking pictures. You put it on the ground, you see it, you point it to an object and say, I want to take that picture, and that's it. So setup time is, in theory, minimal, but I kind of go to that a little bit later. So the key thing is, so to give you this idea of the size, so the one on the right, in front, is my Seestar, and here's the normal rigs that I have access to, and you can see just the size, just comparison. It's just night and day. And actually, in my group, one member is kind of jokingly saying, this picture looked like a Transformer group, and the Seestar is like the Bumblebee. It's a heart of gold, it's tiny, but it's capable. But there's a elephant in the room. So you hear a lot of stories saying, especially for experienced astrophotographers, is that people who use Seestar are just beginners and they really don't know about really the art of astrophotography. So I'm here to kind of try to dispel that a little bit and kind of give you my take on it. And by the way, realistically, nobody really used the polar line Reno anymore. So, I mean, we use Sharp Cap and Nina 3-point polar alignment. So, I mean, if I had a choice, I definitely want to kneel down and actually look at the scope to point to Polaris. So, there's definitely more modern ways. So, it's a funny joke, but I just want to kind of get it up there. And I want to highlight that the market this scope is geared toward is to a wide range of people, from very basic beginners, in fact, like a Christmas present for children, to very experienced people, because they like the portability and the price. So the range, the gamut is huge. But so what happened is that when I bought it, I fell in love with it because it's so easy to put together and just image without spending like 20, 30 minutes setting things up. So what I started doing is that I started going to some of these Facebook groups and started looking at people who's actually using this for the very first time, and maybe this is the first scope they've ever used for astrophotography. And what I realized that a lot of them are very enthusiastic and really eager to learn, because they always hear about things that's so difficult, it takes forever, and you need a science, a master's degree to actually get it to work. But here, essentially, it's an iPhone, just essentially you point and click. So the eagerness and enthusiasm is there. And you can see by the type of question they ask, and very pointed questions. And in fact, the results are pretty breathtaking. And I'll show you that a little bit. And the way I look at it is that it's really a device that is really a gateway to a lot of different disciplines, be it computer science, be it robotics, to imaging, to astrophotography and physics, all kinds of stuff. So that's why I really got attached to this, is that I see the potential in that this is really a gateway to training a lot of brand new folks into this field, into many fields, into the STEM side. So kind of give you the goods. What's so good about this? Why is it so good? Because this, in theory, would automatically track a star for you, because it's the software is in essentially ASI error. So you just have a star atlas. You say, I go a point to the star. You say, go track. So by just doing that, it eliminates a lot of the startup and a lot of headaches for like beginners. Say, how do I get to even track a star? Because you don't have to think about it too much. It's because of the FOV is around at 0.7 to 1.3 degrees, and around with this pixel size, it's actually pretty good for lunar, solar, and pretty bright DSOs. When I say bright DSO, because it's really just a 15 millimeter aperture, so it doesn't have, it's not a light bucket for sure, but you know, you can see pretty decent bright DSOs, and for sure lunar and planets, lunar, solar. I mean, those are perfect candidates. The resolution, again, it's just okay. It's only 1080p, but you know, it's enough for beginners and get themselves wet. But the key thing in that is that because of this, if you're in an OKC environment, because of the pixel scale, you should actually you can actually drizzle it 2 times. That means you can actually double the resolution. So from 1080p now you can talk about 4K resolution now. So the key here is that you got to take lots of short exposures, and with drizzles, then you get a 4K image. Now you're talking about things that you can actually start thinking about print quality now. So the potential is definitely there. Again, it's also designed for ease of use. It might mentally, I think ZWO, when approached this, they rethink of this just an iPhone. They made it so simple that it's simply just you point, click, and just watch. There's the mindset. So that's the ease of use is definitely there. If they execute it correctly, I'm pretty sure we have very wide acceptance. Like I say, the optics is good. We actually dug inside because it's done as one unit. They actually have calibration matrix that take into account the camera and the optics. That's why when you see the images actually have very little distortion. It may not have the worst, they may not have the best optics, but because they have this calibration matrix built in, it's perfectly compensated for any deformancy. So the image you see are actually quite good. There may be some wings on the edges because you know it's still a mass-produced cheap plastic telescope, but the tolerance is definitely not there. But in terms of quality, it's actually quite impressive. Again, the renoise is very low, so it's perfect for these type of short exposures. And I think one of my members in the group did a calculation in that this Seestar limited you to between 10 seconds, 20 second, and 30 second exposure, and that's it. And that's essentially the amount of variation that you can actually change to do these DSO imaging. And even if you change from 10 seconds to 30 seconds, because the renoise is so low, really in the typical skies, you won't see much difference. The improvement is really like 5%. So it's pretty user-friendly, it's pretty robust. If you just stick to the recipe, then you can get decent pictures. So here's some pictures that I kind of highlight what can be done. So some of these are done by my members in my group, and some are just by me, but you can give an idea. So you can get a very decent raw videos of the sun, and you can definitely resolve this, the sunspots. And the solar film they give is actually quite decent. So I have no complaints there. The next one, I caught my eye in that someone did the ISS transit over the moon. So you can roughly see the field of view for this type of things. It's very capable for this big moon and solar features. And one of my members, Dennis Roger, did an amazing shot in terms of this. I got this NGC 104. I think he's from Australia, so he got access to these beautiful DSOs. And what I can tell you is that it can actually resolve the stars into 1 pixel. That means the object is actually quite good. And that's why you can actually drizzle it 2 times and you still get enough resolution and good quality. So that's why from taking bright pictures, bright DSOs, this is just an awesome package. $500, you just pop it on the ground and boom, you go. And these are some of the nebulas I've taken. So give you an idea of what it can do. These are taken roughly maybe from 1 hour to 3 hours worth of integration. I think from 10 to 20 seconds integration time. So a lot of these are, I think I processed with Pix Insight. So I did some of the more modern techniques. So it kind of looked pretty cool, but the data is definitely there. You can see so if you think about just a 3-hour integration with a $500 scope, 50 millimeter, this is darn impressive to me. So, but you notice there are a lot of these are very bright objects. I seldomly see dim objects, and there's a reason why. So I'll give you a basic comparison. So I picked one of these really amazing Astro bin picture of the monkey head that very impressive for me. I think he used a Edge HD11 with a reducer and with a OAG. I mean, essentially just a very middle to high-end equipment with a ZWO 2600 Pro and everything else, and using the Chroma RGB and the, I think Chroma, yeah, SHO filter as well. And he took this for 29 hours. And you can see the details and stuff. I mean, it's just a beautiful rendition and the beautiful color. And on here is what I took with a 3-hour exposure with my Seestar. It definitely, you don't see the quality there. You don't see detail. But for a 3-hour with this scope, I would say it's pretty good. Especially now with today's processing workflows with Blur Exterminator and all the other stuff, you can get really good content and really good images from there. But I don't want to stop there. What I want to do here is that, now I know I can take decent pictures, but what I want to use it for a little more interesting, have more scientific applications. So some of the things I've been looking into are, I want to take spectra. So this is something I took, and I will deep dive on this after these few slides. But the other things that can be done that people have been doing are doing asteroid detections. People who use Tychos, you know, they just just fix your telescope in a spot and then just do a long movies, and then using GPUs to look for changes in the background for finding asteroids by just having any dots that move slowly over time. So it's a perfect instrument for beginners or even intermediate imagers to look for comets or asteroids using things like that. And the field of view with this and the sensitivity is actually quite good. There's actually another user in another group that he's been looking into doing photometry. And in fact, I think he's doing some workshops to kind of train people to kind of do that as well. Because the sensitivity is so high and the noise so low, you can actually do decent photometries by using this instrument. And I have another members in a group that does comet imaging and who do the whole kind of flow. So there are a whole bunch of cool stuff. But instead of just taking images of nebulas and stars, there are a whole bunch of other stuff that can be done with just a simple scope like that. And to give you an idea how good the optics are, one of my members actually did an experiment to actually did a fat field to see how good, how kind of vignetting and stuff, he found zero, literally zero. The thing is that this one, the optical train is all enclosed, is sealed. So if they have a clean room to put this in, there's no dust. There's nothing in there. And also, because the sensor is so small and the optics pretty good, you don't see much variation. So from his test, he say there's extremely flat. I mean, that's from his work, and no vignetting, no variation, zero dust. So that's one data point, but that's also my experience is that I never do any flats with this one. It's really just that simple. So let me kind of summarize on my first part. It's very portable, it's very simple, it's automated in some ways, and it's cheap. So my mind is it's a huge potential for the science and education field. I get actually a lot of communication PMs from educators and high school teachers and people who want to write educational grants. They're really interested in this because now for the first time they have something that they can actually present to students in high school, even middle school level, definitely college level, and get them to start thinking about some of these STEM applications instead of just theories. They can actually do things with it. So I see it's a huge, huge potential. And I'm very, very excited. That's why I want to spend more energy into this and say, how do I make it so that it is one of these platforms that people can use and they can write grants for, and they can actually bring in whole generations of students into this field, or many fields, not just one. All right, so that's the beginning. So the rest is, I'm going to start going through the not so good stuff. So before I start there, I'm going to pause and see if any questions I can answer for you.
I don't see any questions right now, Kai. Let me just take a second look.
Okay. It was one or two near the beginning.
Did you see that? All right, go ahead, Molly.
Oh, Tarek asked, can the Seestar be used with another camera or just the one that's built in?
So because it's all enclosed, in theory, you cannot. In fact, it's all in one circuit board. But because our group because we want to improve it, so we actually have a lot of modifications. We actually did piggyback this with different sensors on top, and I can go through that. But I think because there's so much material I want to cover in this talk, the best avenue for you for that listener is go to our group and dig in, because our group it's amazing in that I was able to attract a lot of experts and a lot of people who are really like to tinker, and the level of discussions and the amount of idea sharing is just totally amazing. So if you're interested in things like this, go to the group and you can just have a field day, because literally each topic has like 30 or 40 discussion threads built in. Everybody is so excited about this.
You want to remind Rainer, our listeners, where we find you?
The best way, if you go to Facebook, my group is called Smart Telescope Underworld. I have that at the beginning of my second slide. So late at the end, you can this slide I'll publish it. I'll share with you in this channel. It's on the second slide. But again, to answer the question for the listeners, that yes, we have put different type of sensors on top, piggyback. So people have put like a wide field sensors, like an all sky camera type. Were you talking about putting like even put like another Evo guide and another IMX, maybe even 533, but it's doable.
Trek also, I think you more or less answered this, but he asked if it's field corrected, the Seestar.
Yes, it's field corrected. I can tell because I actually looked inside and I saw the calibration matrix.
Cool.
John Gleason wants to know if it can be used in equatorial mode with the wedge.
I love that question. Yes, and there's a caveat to that. I actually was the one that presented that idea right before Christmas Eve, and I presented to the official group there, and I'll present it here. So if you really want that, stay tuned. I have a lot of good things for you to see.
Yeah. And Tarek wanted to know, in the pictures you were showing us earlier, how does this perform in different lighting conditions? He asks Bortle 9 versus Bortle what with Seestar?
Well, I mean, just like any other 50 millimeter lens, the darker, definitely the better. We actually had some tests where we compared like a Bortle 2 to Bortle 7. And you definitely see the washing of the detail. It's just like any other 50 millimeter, 250 millimeter focal length camera. It's f5. It's exactly like a f5 250 millimeter focal length camera. And the optics, again, I would say it's A to A-, because it's a triplet. So there's no color distortions. It resolved to the individual pixel. So the star can be resolved all the way to 1 pixel. It's beautiful. Now I've seen some wings at the edge on mine, most likely because when they install it, there's a little tilt, but it's a 1080p, so it's very long, so the center is very good. But I'll tell you some of the shortcomings later, and you'll be a judge.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me now move on. So before, if you heard all the beginning, you may think, "Oh my God, I must be hired by ZWO and I'm just a salesperson." So let me guarantee you, I'm not a representative of ZWO. In fact, I'm begging them to work with us because there's a lot of things we want to improve and fix, and I'll kind of highlight some of them here. I am actually begging them to talk with me, but that's another story. I am not an expert in any field. I just like to tinker and learn. So what I'm presenting later, coming up, are things that I kind of play around and it seems to kind of be interesting. So I just want to share with people. But I am not an expert in any of these fields. I'm just a amateur. The following topics will be controversial. So these are my observations and my opinions. And if you want to follow them, then please use it at your own risk and with your own guidance. All right, I'm about to start. So what are the rest? Again, I told you, Seestar is designed for beginners. It's designed for ease of use. You click and you see. So it's perfect if you're coming from absolutely no background and you just want to take pictures of Orion. You want to take pictures of the Pleiades and stuff. The problem is that they use their very own terminology. They don't use the standard terminology. They use the word enhancement. What's enhancement? Enhancement it's actually just integration. You're just integrating frames. But for some godforsaken reason, they use the word enhancement. They also, because it also mount, in terms of orienting itself, it's very important for it to kind of calibrate itself. So it has a compass and it has a GPS, but it's definitely not good enough. So what they come up with, they call it horizontal calibration. And this is one of those crazy, well, actually one of these, actually in theory, very simple idea, but they did not come with any documentation. And actually they came with a bug. So horizontal calibration essentially is a 3-point calibration. It scans the sky 3 points so that it can create a good all-sky model for it to kind of follow the stars. That's all that is. But for some reason they use horizontal calibration. And if you go to the official forum, I would say you would see a lot of confusion. Say, I can't get calibrations to work. It won't work, and it fell, and it just won't track. You know, the reason is because it's trying to scan the sky, 3 different spots for stars. A lot of these people are actually doing it in suburban, where you have trees and houses. They have no idea, because what happened now when they try to track the stars, they look at back of the building. They don't see any stars, so of course it fails. but nobody tell them. So, and there are a lot of kind of miscommunication or kind of questions and answers that kind of lead people in the wrong direction. So it's kind of unfortunate in that it's such a capable device, but there are a lot of misinformation and kind of wrong information out there. And I just need to get the information out of the people that if you really know just basic ideas, it's actually a pretty decent hardware. All right. So they also use the word adjust. So what's adjust in Seestar? They actually have different mode. They have landscape mode. They have lunar mode. They have DSO. They have DSO mode. They all use the word adjust, but they do different things in different mode. But people don't know that. They just thought it's adjusted. So it's just like adjusting the contrast or adjusting the brightness, just like adjusting the brightness of a TV. That's again, they just simplify so much. They actually don't tell people actually what's actually doing. So it does different things with different mode. And so it all comes to no documentations, and they kind of make it so that it's just like an iPhone. If you in a perfect situation, you get perfect picture. But yeah, just deviate a little bit, you can get frustration until you have somebody to guide you through. And that's my experience in my first couple of months when I look at that group, is that there are a lot of decent pictures, but there's also a subgroup that people that are frustrated because they can't get it to work. And that's I'm trying to hope to have these kind of forums kind of dispel some of these and try to get them to actually appreciate what a good device they actually do have. All right. The optic has very small aperture, so it's very limited to bright DSO. One of the things I see is that if you go to these forums is that you see a lot of these same images over and over and over again. Why is that? Because it's one setting. They fixed the gain of the camera to 80, perfect for if you have good skies and big lenses. But that's the only thing you have, and there's no limit to 3 integration times. So with a small aperture and limited exposure time and suspect tracking, you're really limited to bright DSO. So you get beautiful Orions, you get some of the beautiful bright nebulas, but if you want to dig deeper into some of the dimmer ones, you start seeing noise and you start getting frustrated. There's the focal length, the minimum focal distance is 63 feet. So you can imagine if you're doing like a landscape mode, you won't be able to see something until you're like looking at like a TV tower. So this is may not be a big issue for doing DSOs, but I actually use this for spectroscopy. In which case, when I do focusing, especially doing benchmark spectroscopy, this is a big killer for me. But it's another story. I'll go through that. I kind of mentioned about the horizontal calibration. Because so many people have trouble with it, I actually created a video, kind of actually walk people through exactly what it does, and actually highlight the bugs that actually was in that routine and how to work around it. So people who actually have frustration over horizontal calibration, I welcome to look at the video that it's also in my group. They can actually find that out, and I'll kind of point them to the right location. The other thing that you hear a lot of issues of is that it's very, very high rejection rate. You would think if you have a decently aligned telescope, when you take images, even with dithering, you would get at least 80–90% of your images stackable. Unfortunately, the experience I see is that I've been seeing at most 75. A lot of them hover between 25 and 50%. That means that for 4-hour session, you probably get 2 hours of data. That a lot of people are saying, what's going on? Because they may be, in fact, if you did not go through the right procedure to kind of calibrate the instrument, your rejection rate would be very, very high. Actually, let me see. This actually, it's opposite. I should say this is not rejection rate. It's actually, its acceptance rate is 75, and some is only 25. Let me take that back. The acceptance rate, at best, you're going to get is 75% of your data. At worst, you're going to throw away 3/4 of your data. So let me, I'm sorry, that's a typo, all right? And we suspect, and we actually dig into the data itself, it's due to the wrong bad tracking, because the gear is trying to catch up to the stars, so it has trouble trying to catch up because it was so off-centered. There's also it's a relatively plastic gear. It's actually internally it's not too bad, but the algorithm they use is not optimal, so the rejection is pretty high. The other thing also here is that it has pretty weak Wi-Fi signal. We actually dug into the board. Essentially anybody who uses Raspberry Pi, you would know the Wi-Fi built in is pretty weak. So the working distance probably 10 to 20 feet. If you have a wall, good luck. Then it's even worse. And so you would hear a lot of Wi-Fi signal dropping out and stuff. So people complain about that. And all right. Oh, sorry. Okay. So let me make sure I got that right. Yep. So continue what's rest is that, again, this is really designed for beginners. So they hide every controls from you. You cannot set the camera gain. You cannot set the offsets. So think about it. If you're able to switch between narrowband and the wideband, you're still limited to the same gain. That doesn't make much sense because you're already cutting a lot of the signal, but you still expect to use exactly the same parameters. So if you think about using this as a EAA, where you just really want to see objects, you don't care about noise, but you want to just see the object. You just want a higher gain so you can actually see the outline, and so you can build that outline better and better. But because the gain is so low, you don't get that pleasure. Is that you see blurriness, and then you keep on integrating until you start seeing something. At the end, it's still quite good, but it's a different use case. But because they use the one size fit all paradigm, you're stuck with that. There's no, when I say no standby exposure, in that because you don't have full control of the camera, they have a specific standby. Essentially, just kind of have a very short exposure time, probably 1 second or less, to kind of give you an idea what's there. So if you have like a very dark sky versus a very polluted sky, you want to change exposure because you don't. It really depends on the situation, but because it's meant for like beginners, or they simplify way too much. Let me see. There's no dithering settings. That's actually one of the key reasons why we have such high rejection rate. What it does right now is that it dithers every 5 frames. So for example, if you're going to take 1,000 frames, because it's a very short frame, so it's only 10 seconds, so 1,000 is actually not unreasonable for it. There's really no reason to dither every 5 seconds. And the fact that it dither, it takes another 5 to 10 seconds for it to catch up. So when it's dither, it actually loses 2 or 3 frames. That is the reason why you have 25% rejection rate as a bare minimum, because it's dithering settings. So, but they don't give that configuration for you, so you're stuck with what they have. The other thing that's really frustrating for me is that ZWO, when it cannot stack, because it does live stacking on its own. So currently, it fails stacking because there's star trails, or because the gear has backlash and stuff. You have these trails. Just because you have those, it automatically rejects those frames, and you have no access to them. So that means that even though if I lose, let's say 50% of my frame, if I know enough about PixInsight, I can actually salvage a lot of this data. But unfortunately, these are for beginners in their mind, so that this is, you can't use it, so I'm gonna throw it away anyway. So you're stuck. Now this may not be too bad because you don't use PixInsight or some more sophisticated stacking algorithms. But think about it. I try to use spectroscopy, do spectroscopy on these things. In spectroscopy, you won't see much stars, if any, and you're gonna have huge spectrum. So what happens? The stacking algorithms say, oh my God, this doesn't look like any stars, so I'm gonna throw it away. That means I lost all my spectroscopy images. So I'm stuck. So again, it's think point and click, there's really no manual mode. You have all these capable hardware be under this. I mean, ZWO, they made ASI Air, so they know how to expose all these functionality, but they hide all that from you. But so if you really want to just take good pictures on bright stars, it's a perfect device. But if you want to do anything beyond that, my God, I cannot do anything. So that's a common theme in here. There's absolutely no ASCOM drivers, nothing, period. So they expect you to use their app and then just use it. And then if it works for you, perfect. But it doesn't, then you kind of stuck. Now, granted, they do update the app and firmware pretty often as people ask more features. But the gap between what I hope to get and what they have right now is so big that I just can't wait. So I'm kind of impatient. That's one reason why I kind of want to describe to you what I've done because of this. One of the big things that you would also hear about this is that because in osmosis mount, there's a lot of field rotations because the Earth rotates, but this thing is staying on the base. So just like a star trail pictures, the star's going to rotate, but because of that, a lot of people are very uncomfortable because they thought it's like an iPhone camera. So if I take a picture, it should look like a picture. But I'll show you an example that the edges look fuzzy. They say, hey, that doesn't make any sense. I don't like this. How do I fix it? But because of what they have right here, you cannot fix it. So what are you going to do? Currently, because the sensor is such a small FOV, you really want to have some kind of session planning because I want to do a mosaic. Let's say I want to have a bigger DSO. I want to do North America nebula. I mean, for that, I got to manually do that and kind of move it every so often. It's kind of hard. It's very hard. So I think they were going to come with mosaic planning, but that's one of the most requested features from our group, and I'm sure from a lot of different people too. All right. I kind of mentioned about the aspect ratio is very narrow. So for pictures, it's not good, but it's okay for spectroscopy because spectroscopy is really the long lines. But if you have these very narrow FOVs, we also field rotation, that's a double whammy because what that means is that instead of a 1080 by 2000, realistically it's 1000 by 1000 because all the edges are kind of just grayed out or just kind of diluted out. So it's really if they really want to use it as an image, they really should have just used a square sensor instead of this really narrow sensor. All right, so that's why I kind of say, what about the rest of us? I like taking pictures. I mean, I love taking pictures of bright DSOs, but after a while, I want to go to fainter ones. I want to do other things. I want to do spectroscopy. I want to do EAA. I want to do mosaic, and I want to be able to control the device that I know we can because all the component inside. I know what they did. I know what's inside. I know I can do it, but there's a brick wall. I can't do anything. So because of that, there's no automation, and that theme is the key for me because I want to automate things because if you want to be accessible to more junior scientists or students, you don't want them to keep on clicking mouse all the time. They want to be able to have a script to run. If they kind of do things and do as much thing as possible that's mundane and let them focus on the more interesting stuff. All right. Before I go on to actually give you an example of the field rotations, is there any questions?
You have a lot of people online that must have these devices and have experience, so there's a lot of crosstalk about it. Jason mentioned that, didn't they just recently change so you could adjust the gain?
I've never heard, no, I don't think so. In fact, I have the latest firmware. I actually dug in. I know how to change it myself, but it's not for normal people. You have to actually know how to hack it. I think I know how to set it, but it is not accessible to anybody else.
And the question was earlier, can you mount this another way so it's not alt-has?
That's what I'm going to show you very soon. Stay tuned.
Good. Did I miss anything? I guess not. Go ahead.
All right. So let me kind of give you an idea what field rotation looked like. So one of my co-admin in my group, we actually are able to figure out how to collect all the rejected frames. So remember I told you before, Seestar threw away all those frames, but we know how to do that now to actually retrieve all the rejected frames. And let me show you what it does. Ready? This is 265 frames, 10 seconds exposure. You can see what it does. It rotates, it jitters, but you see the data is there, and not much starter actually. It's just kind of jitter. It's kind of, in terms of tracking, it's kind of all over the place. But you see the rotation. So you see rotation, some streaks, and artifacts. That's 265 frames. So you would think with this, I can actually retrieve, I can salvage a lot of these data and actually get a decent image out of that. But Seestar with his algorithm right now reject all but 28% of the frames. That means out of 265 frames, only 74 are saved. You get all the data that's lost because of this. Now, so I don't want to speculate what they've done, why they reject these frames. I have some ideas, but the proof is in the data. This is what it looked like. All right. So you can see the field rotation. I hope that's clear. So when you have field rotation, what does that mean? So I got two examples for you. So what you see here is that when I took I want to take a nice Horsehead Nebula. It's a pretty bright nebula, but because of field rotation, the data here and the data here are very different, because the fact that it used the first frame as a reference, as the reference frame, as the data rotate, the stacking, the more and more data are here, but all the data on the edge are not there. That's why you see these really distracting images. So if you're here to see beautiful images, I don't expect to see these edges, right? So here's another example. Here's Orion. But you see here, as you collect more and more data, you see a detail in the middle, but you see the edge, it's all washed out. That's why if they just use a square sensor, then maybe it's not a big deal, but they picked a very long aspect ratio sensor. So that's like glaring right in front of you. What are you going to do? All right. So this is what I start playing around and say, hey, wait a second. I mean, I know how the telescope works. I mean, this idea it's been ages. So why don't we do that? So before Seestar, they have various different firmware releases. So before Christmas, all the firmware does not have a 3-star alignment procedure, what they call horizontal calibration. So what that means is that they simply depend on the horizon, the leveling, to tell you that you're using the leveler and the compass to say, yeah, your Seestar is in a good position, I'm okay now. So even though you know how Equatorial works, you cannot get it to work because the firmware will know how to deal with it. Because when you put your Seestar in an angle like this, it automatically say, hey, you're not level. You must not know what you're doing. So they reject and say, sorry, you can't do anything. So the thing what happened that a light bulb came is that I think right before Christmas, they released a new firmware that opened up what they call, again, horizontal calibration, and people just got pissed off because of that. But the thing what it does is that it now allows you to construct a good all-sky map without being level. That's the key, is that now I can now orient my scope not resting on the ground, but I can any angle, as long as I can pass horizontal calibration, I'm good. So this is my horizontal calibration. I'm able to calibrate. It's definitely not horizontal. All it's really doing is a 3-star calibration. Again, they use this really bad terminology about horizontal calibration, but really it's just 3-star calibration. So now I use 3-star calibrations to now help me do polar alignment. So by doing that, this is how I rate. Now, so there's 2 things that came into play. One is that we need that new firmware that you can bypass leveling, just use horizontal, just use 3-star calibration to get a a sky model, and you use a wedge to orient it so that so instead of using the azimuth orientation, I convert this into a equatorial mode. As you can see, the base of the device is my RA axis. The arm becomes my deck axis. So that's it. So like you say, you had an early question from a viewer that, can I do this in equatorial mode? Yes, with a caveat. So when I present these solutions to the main group right before Christmas, there were a lot of discussions. So it's very interesting. Some were ecstatic. That, my God, now I can get rid of field rotation. But there's some vocal people to say, hey, wait a second, this is not good. I mean, there's some valid points. Say, first, well, there's some points say it would never work. It's not meant to be equatorial, so it should never work. There are other valid points in that, this is really a plastic casing. We have no idea what type of gears inside. So I may be just cranking up the plastic gears, and ruining. Now again, I'm doing it for my own experimentation. I don't expect anybody else to do this and follow me. I'm just ready to say, hey, I think I can try this and see if it works. And so lo and behold, it did work. This is my second try. The first try was a horrible, bad experience, but that's a different story. But the second try, it did work, and so that's when I kind of present something in that group to say, hey, I think I got something. So so in short, this is how you do it. I've documented. Actually, an interesting point is that the Seestar group, actually, because there's a lot of beginners, they don't actually know what's azimuth or equatorial mode. So when I kind of mentioned that, they have no idea. It's like it's totally foreign language. So what I did is that I created a series of videos that explain the whole thing in terms of exactly what the modes are, what's actually doing, why orient this way, and how does it affect it as you go from the pole to equator. So I have a link to all that video in my group, and that's actually my first post in my group. So anybody interested? And with this now, there's actually quite a few members start confirming that they did work for them, and I'll give you some examples later too. But again, all this in terms of instruction and things, what's the idea, what's the theory, and what's the implications, and what's the executions, all documented in my group. Again, it's this really enabled because ZWO accidentally released this function to allow you to do horizontal calibration without being level. That's one of the key. And I was just lucky enough to kind of, hey, wait a second, if they did that, I can try this. So it just happened to work. Okay, now the other thing I want to highlight is that if they do this, you know what? In that case, I don't even need to do polar alignment, because if they already have a good model, they just need to just do Nina and to just give me a 3-point calibration to do polar alignment. So, but after doing my 3-point calibration, just tell me how to adjust it. Then I'm totally polar aligned. So I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So if ZW is listening, in theory, this would be a really cool thing. Now, I will address this later on in this presentation. Why we feel that this unit's actually good, and it's actually robust enough to support this type of things. And I'll go through that soon. So give you an example how extreme this is. So we actually have 2 members in Hong Kong. They're pretty close to equator. So I think 77.5 degrees latitude. So what they did is that because of that, they have to rest it almost to the ground. So they're making an angle of 22.5, and they have two members who are a pioneer in their group to actually do that. And I'll show you some of the data they get, and they are reporting they're no problem. They're actually doing that as well. Now, again, I want to highlight, this actually has been told by ZW, say, don't do this. So because I'm sure they worry about the liability and stuff, I fully understand that. Again, these are things that we just want to try out. This is for our own purposes. I'm not asking anybody to do this. So I'm just showing you that it's capable of doing it, but use your judgment, okay? And I'll follow up with some other slides to give you an idea of how it's built inside to do that. Okay, let me go back. Is there any questions?
I think you're good. Let me just take a quick look.
Okay.
Again, lots of crosstalk about, you know, the subject that you're bringing up. So I think you have a bunch of real users of Seestar online.
These are very hot button topics that's been flowing around in a few groups, and there are a lot of misconception and a lot of people talking about different things. I just want to clear the air. I think I know what I'm doing. I have enough experience, and I have other people that actually verified. And actually, one of my member, I'm not sure I have time to show this, but it's in my group. He actually did a 40-minute video explaining how he got from 0 to the Equatorial mode, exactly what all the steps produced beautifully. He just published it today. And again, all these were done in the last 2 weeks. So things have moved really fast, and it's just amazing timing that you gave me this opportunity to kind of share this to other people. But I know this was on people's mind for a long, long time, and a lot of opinions were given. I just want to clear the air.
Jeff said he has a lot of questions, but you keep answering them. so right. Keep on answering them.
Okay, so let me move on now. Let me tell you why we think it's good. Like I say, we are a inventor group, and we like to tinker. A lot of our members actually like to break things, and a few of them actually are very good at breaking things and tearing things down and putting it back together. So we actually broke out this case, and lo and behold, we actually found a bearing on the RA axis. This guy, Pavel, my God, I'm so happy that he's in my group. He is just a genius. I wish you would just go to our group and just see some of the things that some of our members are able to do. I'm just so excited. So by taking it apart, because he's in robotic mechatronics, he knows the gears and stuff, so he knows if it's good or not. So there's actually metal bearing that actually are there with enough spacing, and this is the opinion. You can read that later. I don't want to spend too much time in this because there's a lot more things I want to talk about. But there's a metal bearing that actually are very robust, and that's why when we have two guys in Hong Kong resting almost to the ground and doing it for like 4-hour sessions, no problem. And in fact, he's so amazed at this. He decided to say, hey, because RA is so good, I worry about the deck arm. So what he did is actually create an idea that actually do an extra support on the side where the deck arm still moves. So he actually put a bearing right here, and he 3D printed an arm to actually help support. So now you have two pivot points now that when the deck arm moves, it's perfectly stable. And he just did it yesterday. My God, this guy's awesome. I mean, Pavel, if you're listening, thank you. Now, even further, because we broke it apart, because that's how we know it's a Raspberry Pi. Remember I told you that the Wi-Fi sucks in Seestar. Why? Because they just have a very simple printed circuit wire to kind of as an antenna. But we know, because it's just Raspberry Pi, we know how to actually add an external antenna to it. So look what happened. So he actually, also another members, figure out we can just do a simple desoldering, and now lo and behold, we actually have a, let me go back, sorry. We actually now, so this guy has both just a supporting arm and an external antenna, so it can actually extend your Wi-Fi from 20, I think 20 feet to like 35 feet. I forgot what, it's not as high as we hope, but it's definitely more than 20, 30%. So what this means is that now we can put external antenna, get better Wi-Fi reception and less drops. All right. Let me see. Is there any question?
No new questions, Kai.
Okay. All right. All right. So we also, there's another amazing contributor in our group. His name is Barry Craig. He produced 3 or 4 videos showing exactly how to take this apart. It's amazing. He just published it yesterday. Actually, just 12 hours ago, or maybe less than 1 day ago. He published a series of 3 videos how to take it apart so you can actually do what we just did. You can actually extend an antenna to it. We can not just that. I'll show you what he did later. But he has a few videos that are exposed in our group now, so you can actually watch at your own leisure to see step by step what tool to use, how to take it apart very easily. I mean, it's so easy that even a hack like me can actually do that. And I look forward to that actually tomorrow.
I don't want to interrupt, but since you passed over it, are those 3D printed parts available? Or are the plans to print them available?
The goal for my group is that anything you see should be openly shareable. Nothing is proprietary. So I think that's one of my group rules, is that we like to share and share ideas. And again, one of the pitch I have is that our group is that we like to share ideas if you have an idea that's actionable. I don't like ideas that are just pie in the sky, but you have an idea, but you have a way to move forward. I welcome that. And so what I say is that any plans, anything you see, yes, I expect that to be openly available. I'm not sure he will have a STL file for you, but he is very active in terms of sharing knowledge and stuff. I'm sure it'll be nice. I'm sure he'll help you along.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right. So now let me talk about rejection rate. So how do I know how do I know that we had such bad rejection rate before? We have another amazing member. His name is Chris Gray. He actually did analysis, because now we have access to all these files. We can actually see by timestamp what is it in terms of how much time it takes per frame, how much time it takes to jitter, how often it fails. He did analysis and actually did that in an equatorial mode. So he did this using an equatorial wedge. And now, before I told you the average rejection rate is like 50 to 60%. So I told you there's a minimum rejection rate, 25%. We finally figure out why, because it's all because of dithering. Because what happened here is that every time you take a sub, because of 10-second sub, it takes 11 to 12 seconds for each sub, so it's reasonable. But every time you do a jitter, that sub itself, it takes, instead of 10 seconds, it takes 20 to 25 seconds. That's a penalty you pay every time you do a dithering. So if you do it you do that during every 5 frames, that means that equate essentially 25% penalty, no matter what. So you're stuck. So that's why at the very, very best, you get 25%. Now, because he has an equatorial mount, it's aligned relatively good so that the mount doesn't have to do too much work to chase those stars. He is actually getting 75% acceptance rate. So essentially, he's almost perfect. That's the best he can do right now. So what I'm saying is that if you do equatorial mount and you know what you're doing, you can safely get 65 to 75%. Now, let me even make that even better. Why do we need to jitter every 5 frames? It doesn't make any sense. If I take 1,000 shots, I just need statistical significance to kind of weed out the wings, right? So I don't need 200 data sets, actually like 20 data sets. So that means instead of 5 frame, take a data every 5 frames, make a data every 50 frames. What does that mean? That means your acceptance rate go from 75% to probably close to 90%. So that's another way you can actually improve. But how do we change the dithering? So if you stay, I'll show you how, but it's doable. All right. But again, all these is in our group. Every analysis in here, and every post like this has so many very thoughtful discussion and discourse. It's just totally amazing. So I would encourage you, if you go to our group, not just skim through the posts. I want you to dig down to the discussions, because that's where the gold nuggets are. Because people are willing to share the expertise and the experience freely to anybody who wants to learn. So I loved people like that, and this group, it kind of exemplified that. All right, that's end of part 1. After this, I'm going to deep dive into some of the kind of interesting thing I want to talk about. I'm deep to my heart is spectroscopy, so I want to show you something I've done and some new ideas I want to show you. But before I do that, is there any questions?
Kai, how much more do you have to cover?
Ooh, how much time do I have?
That's what we're discussing.
In that case, I'll go fast and I'll try to cover in like 15 minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Kai, before
I have
you
a
go,
question. I'm sorry. Let me just one quick question. Why do you have to dither it all? Considering the setup and the resolution, I mean, do you really have to dither?
That's a very good question. We actually never tested that. My experience with that, even any sensor, there's always some fluctuation. There's some, the sensors always have some default issues. You will get walking noise, I imagine, right? So dithering would help, but you definitely don't need every 5 frames if you do 1,000 frames.
So even considering the accuracy of the whole setup and the tracking, you essentially are probably dithering just by that without actually physically dithering.
I think so, because you saw the jitter, right? That's natural dithering already. So I think that's a very, very accurate. In fact, I didn't think of that. Please join my group. I would love to have you share my experience.
Alec?
Yeah, I was just gonna. This is great stuff, and you've got a heck of a big audience out there. I think they want to come back and hear the rest of the stuff when we've got time to really go over it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay,
and
sure.
Is it at all possible to schedule you for 6-8 weeks from now and let people percolate about this stuff, and maybe get you to come back and talk again about it?
In that case, I would like to show one piece that I really want to show.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
And I want to see the Facebook page. But
Oh,
other
yes.
than that,
Yes.
you're still
I posted the link in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
All
go.
right, go for it.
Okay. I'll be really fast on this one. The reason I'm kind of hesitant, because a lot of people actually are waiting for this spectroscopy work, because actually a lot of teachers are very keen on trying to figure out what I'm doing. But what I can do is that I would probably produce a few videos kind of explain all my stuff, because realistically I cannot explain this here anyway. So, but I want to give you some highlights. Can I do that?
Well, just before you do that, just one quick comment. It sounds like the pace of change within this setup, that in 6 and 8 weeks you will have a lot more to talk about.
Well, I'll probably have a lot to talk about tomorrow, because a lot of people are actually doing a lot of cool stuff right now. I literally have 600 tinkerers working feverishly out doing each other. It's just totally amazing. I'm
All
just
right.
so heartbroken. I mean,
Go for it. Go.
Yeah. All right. Let me kind of walk you through a little bit here. So some of the resolution I can get with my sensor. This is objective lens grading. So I actually tested 4 or 5 different density lines from 50 to 300. I actually found a manufacturer of that would match 50 square millimeter that would actually take as much use of the aperture as possible. It's beautiful. I want to give a shout out, because Thorlab actually gave me this grading. oh my God, it's just jaw dropping. The resolution I can get from that. So this is a spectrum of a calibration neon lamp. This is just one small section, so you can see the resolution I can get just for that lamp. This whole length is 2,000 pixels, so I can resolve the quality. Now, please ignore this is wiki line. It's not a sharp line because I just did a homemade a star, so it's just simply just a electric tape with a hole. So, but that's what it looked like. But to give you an idea, is the resolution I can get just putting a grating in front of my Seestar. I can do spectra of Sirius with this resolution of visible range. But I don't. This is not what I'm trying to get at. Sorry, I want to get at this point is that I think I figured out a way for anybody to calibrate essentially relatively high resolution spectra without calibration lab. And maybe that's my my lip wetting intro for the next time. All right, but there's if you're really interested, please go to my group. It's a private group, but we're pretty lenient at this point. So usually we'll accept most invites and we'll accept a membership. So, but please take a look. A lot of these are in our group, and I just want to shout out to all the members in my group that it just is amazing things. I'm just a curator and just want to just highlight. My God, if you have an idea or you like to learn and you're open-minded and you like to, if you have an idea that you think you have action plans on, please come to my group and share. And that's how I'll stop at that. All right. I'll stop at this point. Is there any questions?
Molly, you're the host.
Yes, I'm here. I'm back. Yeah. So, are there any more questions here in the room, or did we spot any more?
I think we're good.
All right.
Yeah, look, a few accolades that you're going to want to read before you get to your next show. Next time you come back, Kai.
Oh,
Kai, you can stop sharing. Hit the little stop
sure.
sharing button.
Okay.
Just one thing that I wanted to point out is that if you do want to drizzle, you have to dither. So I know Kai said that, he benefits quite a bit from drizzling, from doing a drizzle integration on the data, and it must be well dithered in order to drizzle. So
I think one point is that if you see that that rotation artifact, that thing is generated everywhere. It's not thinking to it. First of all, it's not guided by a guide scope, so it has natural randomness already. So I think that's the point of somebody here is that you can just use that randomness of how bad the gears or tracking is, use that as a natural dithering.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. I think that was definitely a lot of people are really interested in this, and a lot of chatter going on in the chat. And I think a lot of people will be watching this for sure. It's always fun to hack equipment and figure out how to make it do what you want. So that's awesome.
It's fantastic. We hacked both the hardware and now getting to the firmware side. So it's fun.
That's fun. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on tonight. And you can hang out after we end the stream if you'd like to hang out and chit chat.
Sure. Okay.
Molly?
Yeah.
I just wanted to have a program note.
Yeah.
We forgot that February 11th, I think, is Super Bowl Sunday, and we've scheduled a program for that day. And it's a program that we need to get in before the eclipse, because it's about running the eclipse with your iPhone and stuff like that with your phone. So we'll be rearranging the schedule a little bit. I'm contacting a few people, seeing how we can get this done. So keep yourself posted with the calendar. We'll update it as quickly as we can as we go along. And the shows that we're offering may not come in order, but they will be here.
And we'll update the calendar accordingly.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. And I think with that, we'll go ahead and sign off for the night. Take us out.